You can't necessarily like fully segment them apart and work one and not the other, but there can be a focus of one versus the other, if that makes a little bit of sense. So when it comes to diastasis recti, like I mentioned earlier, so if you have really tight obliques, you're really restricted through your pelvis, really restricted through your pelvic floor, you're likely not activating your core, not just your abdominals, but your entire core from your pelvis, which includes the pelvic floor, all the way through your torso, essentially, right? We're not activating correctly. We're probably gripping in our muscles. And if we're really grippy and really tight in those outer layer muscles, the bigger abdominal, bigger core muscles, well, then we're not as connected through the middle of our abdominals, right? So this is why I like doing crunches during pregnancy, doing crunches postpartum. Like, oh my gosh, it's like nails on a chalkboard to me. I'm like, do you really want to cause problems? Like, keep doing them, but otherwise, please stop doing crunches.
Do you want to wake up feeling like you're stepping into who you're meant to be, into the best possible version of you? What if I told you that the key to your best life, health, and happiness are all around you? You just have to find what works for you. I'm Hope Pedraza, and I believe that there isn't just one way to live a healthy and meaningful life, and that all you need is a little inspiration to make changes that last from the inside out. Each week, I'll be sharing tangible tips and inspirational interviews to help you on your journey. These are the steps to take to improve your life and live with purpose. This is Hopeful and Wholesome. Hey y'all, welcome back to the show. I have on today my guest, Erica Ziel. Erica is a mom of 3 and received her health and human performance degree from Iowa State University. She's a fellow FDNP, a holistic health coach, a personal trainer, Pilates instructor. You can see we have a lot in common, which is why I'm so excited to bring her on this show. And then she's also a deep core and pre and postnatal exercise specialist. And that's really kind of what we're going to get into today. She is the founder and creator of Core Athletica, the Core Rehab Program, Knocked Up Fitness, and she has a pre-postnatal exercise specialist course. She's got so many courses and programs out there to help you with pre-postnatal exercise. And she really does focus on rebuilding your core after baby and helping you with your core before baby. She really believes anything you want, you can improve your health and life, you can. And we're going to dive deep into the deep core of your body, talking about what happens when you have babies to your body. I mean, we all know what happens when we have babies to our bodies, but she's going to talk about how we can repair and recover no matter how long it's been, whether your babies are actual babies or your babies are no longer babies anymore. It's never too late, which she's going to talk about, talking about those deep transverse abdominals, your deep core muscles, your pelvic floor health, diastasis recti, and what that means, what it looks like. So all things health and body postnatal and how you can really work to repair all of this. She has so many nuggets for y'all. You might want to take notes on this episode, especially if you're somebody that has dealt with diastasis or you have somebody you know. Send this episode to them because she is giving you so many nuggets here. She's essentially coaching you through this on this episode and giving you all the things that you need to know to do to start rebuilding your core. So excited to bring you this. Let's jump in. All right, y'all, let's jump in. I'm here with Erica, and I'm super excited to bring Erica on today because she is a wealth of knowledge in all things pelvic floor and just wellness and helping you before, after baby, even when it's well after baby. So I'm excited to bring this conversation. Thanks so much for joining me today, Erica.
Well, Hope, thank you so much. I'm super excited to see you again and get to continue conversation.
Totally. So if you didn't catch us, I did an interview on Erica's podcast. So go check that out, Core Connections. And we talked about a lot of fun stuff. So go check out that. Yes, it was super fun.
My ladies loved it.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. I'm so glad. So y'all go check that out. And it's fun to do a swap. I love this. We get the best of both worlds here with switching podcasts. So this is fun. So Erica, let's jump in here first. I want to start, we're going to talk about kind of pelvic floor care and like rehabbing. I say that term loosely, but like rehabbing your body after baby, because she's so good at that. And we'll talk a little bit about why, like what she does in that realm. But can you explain I guess let's start with like the total like basics for people who don't know what happens to your body when you have a baby and your abs separate. Can you explain what happens and how that affects us?
So there's a lot of things obviously that go on with pregnancy, birth, postpartum recovery. So for, a lot of moms end up with diastasis recti, which is the separation of the abdominal wall. And there are definitely things we can do, during pregnancy to work to minimize. I never say we can fully prevent it because that would be a untrue statement, right? But
Yeah.
can we do a lot to work to really minimize it and better prepare our body to heal faster postpartum? That is a true statement. And I see that a lot. So because, there's so much just stretching and spreading that's happening with our body. And I actually see it with a lot of women who are super active or they're really, really tight in their obliques, really restricted through their body. Those of us that are like that was me as well, tend to be a little bit more likely to have worse or more severity of diastasis, right? Well, and there's multiple reasons for it, right? What can cause it? It can be obviously as we age, potentially. I know that's like if you looked it up, that would be one of the factors, but sometimes I debunk that myth because actually what's more important is how we are moving our body during pregnancy and after baby. Because yes, even if you don't quote have diastasis, even early postpartum, you can cause it by going back to your exercise too hard too soon because of the hormone relaxin in our body, right? So we can talk more about the relaxin and some things that can cause if we're not aware of it and we really do go back too quickly, right? So with the diastasis, the separation, right, is the exercises you're doing, how you're breathing, how restricted is your body, what's the health of your fascia? I talk a lot about fascia in my world. I try to educate my ladies a lot about fascia so they understand that, look, what I'm teaching you is not just how to be strong muscularly, but even more important is how to be the right kind of strong and strong fascially. And so do you ladies know what fascia is? Do you want me to do a quick explanation
Do a
of what
quick
fascia
explanation.
is? Okay.
Yes, please.
Okay. So I explain fascia. It's kind of become a buzzword, right? Especially like in the beauty world, right? Collagen and fascia. So to understand the connection with collagen and fascia, well, fascia is made up of the collagen matrix. So that's why you see a lot of collagen in skincare products, right? Because our skin is a lot of collagen in our skin, right? And then also in our fascia. So fascia runs basically all around our body, all through our body. It encapsulates all of our organs. It is really what makes up our tendons and our ligaments. It wraps around every single muscle in our body, every single muscle spindle. It wraps around all of our nerves. And we have all these layers of fascia and we have layers of fascial sheaths essentially in like our abdominal wall as well. So when it comes to diastasis, I really like to train all of my ladies how to become more fascially strong, whether you're pre-baby, during pregnancy, or well beyond babies, because when we start to tap into our fascial system, we become more fascially strong, but we also become more muscularly strong. But it's like, if we just focus on our muscles, we don't necessarily tap into our fascial system as much, right? You can't necessarily like fully segment them apart and work one and not the other, but there can be a focus of one versus the other, if that makes a little bit of sense. So when it comes to diastasis recti, like I mentioned earlier, so if you have really tight obliques, you're really restricted through your pelvis, really restricted through your pelvic floor, you're likely not activating your core, not just your abdominals, but your entire core from your pelvis, base of your pelvis, which includes the pelvic floor, all the way through your torso, essentially, right? We're not activating correctly. We're probably gripping in our muscles. And if we're really grippy and really tight in those outer layer muscles, the bigger abdominal, bigger core muscles, well, then we're not as connected through the middle of our abdominals, right? So this is why I like doing crunches during pregnancy, doing crunches postpartum, like, oh my gosh, it's like nails on a chalkboard to me. I'm like, do you really want to cause problems? It's like, keep doing them, but otherwise, please stop doing crunches. There's a time and a place for them. Once you've rehabilitated your body, I teach it in my program in the very last stage, how to do proper flexion, because yes, it is a functional movement, but there is a very wrong way of doing it that can cause diastasis, cause pelvic floor dysfunction, cause back pain. And there's a right way of doing it that can really help us to heal our body or continuing to get us stronger but without causing dysfunction. So there's a lot of pieces with all this, but when it comes to, the diastasis recti, one thing to really start to understand is when and this is where we were talking right before we went live or recording, was about pelvic floor. I go, okay, well, we can't talk about diastasis without mentioning pelvic floor. And here's why. And I have a lot of women, it's gotten better because I'm doing better at really prompting my ladies to understand, like, look, you cannot truly heal, at least in my world, heal diastasis recti without addressing what's going on with your pelvic floor. Because in order to properly activate and engage your core muscles in your deep core, which means everything from the pelvis up through your torso, right? you have to address your pelvic floor. The pelvic floor is the initiator of that. So in order to work on prevention, minimizing, healing diastasis, it starts at the pelvic floor and with breathing techniques. So we can do all the core exercises in the world and actually not get rid of diastasis or heal it or prevent it because we're not going at it the right way. I think so many times we're relying on movement to do the work instead of us tuning into our bodies and really understanding, look, like we have to stop. We have to get away from that, like feel the burn and feel our abs. And it's so different when you actually activate your core the way that I teach, which changes lives every day. And it's why I love this work. It really, really, changes everything, not just working with the diastasis conversation, but it can help with pelvic floor dysfunction. It can help with back pain, neck pain, shoulder pain, hip pain, you name it, because I just am a firm believer that, again, to train our body to be more fascially strong and fascially fluid, which improves our mobility, improves our breathing, improves just how we move throughout our day and works on not only healing our body now, but also preventing future ailments and things that creep in, right? That we really have to look at how everything is integrated together. So that was a lot. And I'm sure you're like, how do we pick that apart? But
no, it was perfect. Such a good explanation. And yeah, there's a lot to pull apart there. But I love what you said there at the end, because I think it's just like, and just so y'all know, Erica is a fellow FDN. And so I think it's just like anything where we talk about treating things holistic, right? From a holistic perspective, it's the same way with the ab separation, right? It's, you've got to treat everything holistically, like from the bottom to the top. So it's not just, and I think, that's a huge, well, and that's also why I love Pilates so much. And she's also a Pilates instructor level. We have so much in common. I love this. But it's also why I love Pilates so much, is because we focus so much on the breath, and that's so tied to the pelvic floor and those deep transverse abdominals, like all of those deep muscles that all connect all of this. So no, I think what you said was perfect. It was such a good explanation. And I think that is true that a lot of people do kind of leave out the pieces, or like they're just focused on the pelvic floor, but not relating that to the diastasis. Like they're not connecting those pieces.
Yeah. So, or they're just focused on healing the abs,
right?
And we're not connecting it, because there's like and people or any ladies listening that have diastasis or kind of familiar with that, right? You've probably seen other people teach it where like you wrap a towel around your ribs and stuff like that. And I'm like, guys, I stopped doing that. Well, maybe I taught it in the very beginning of my years when I was first learning about diastasis, because I've been working with pre and postnatal populations since before I was a mom. And you guys, my oldest is 16. So I've been doing this for a very long time. I've been doing this before even like it's so funny because the pelvic floor has become more of a buzzword the last couple of years. And I've noticed it, and it's like, it's great. I love it. Diastasis, kind of the same thing, but I go way back, because I was learning about pre-postnatal with what we had at the time when I was in college. And it's interesting to see the evolution. It's also interesting to see how much of the old stuff is still there. Right. And I'm not saying that those methods maybe they work for some people, but what I see that then gets missed is, again, we're missing the integration of the full body. Right. And while it may work for some, I don't see it working for very many, because we're missing that full integration. What's the breath doing? What's the pelvic floor doing? What's your pelvis doing? Like, I can tell you, if you're walking around all day with a tucked pelvis and sucking your belly to spine, it's going to be a heck of a lot harder to heal your diastasis.
Yeah. And let's talk about that a little, because I know before we started, I was like, oh, we talked about pelvic floor and stuff, but I feel like we have to talk a little bit more. So because that leads me to a question. So I know for some people, like you were talking about, if you're type 3 obliques, because I want to back up, because you said at the beginning, like to say that it's not possible, like, or that to avoid diastasis, like you can't avoid it. Like your abs literally have to separate to grow human. So like you can't avoid it altogether. It's just minimizing it, right? But I think the other piece is, we were talking about, if you're tight through the obliques, whatever, but I want to talk about like tight versus like a weak pelvic floor and a tight pelvic floor, because there's a difference. Okay. Yeah. And so can you explain that? Because I think sometimes men don't understand, and we talk about Kegels all the time, but Kegels can actually work against us sometimes, right? So can you talk about that a little?
Okay. How long?
I know, right? I know.
Okay. So, well, in short, basically, my whole issue with Kegels, and again, there will always be women that say, well, Kegels helped me. Okay. That's few and far between is what that is. Because I work with thousands of women. And what I will tell you is, when I get women to stop doing Kegels and actually starting to look at, again, at their core and their body as a whole. And we recognize, okay, yes, we can address our pelvic floor as our pelvic floor and the muscles on its own, but that is not going to give us optimal pelvic floor function. And that's the biggest thing. I want optimal for everybody.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Optimal, right? I want you bettering your body and your life and your health all the time. I'm not just getting you partway there and being like, oh, well, that's all I know and that's all we can do, right? No, let's get you the whole way. So understanding that, okay, what's going on with your pelvic floor? Kegels creates, I see, a massive imbalance in the pelvic floor. A lot of restriction, usually like more in the middle or the front of the pelvic floor, and maybe it's more one side versus the other. Most women don't understand their pelvic floor actually runs all the way back towards like their tailbone, right? So we could go a whole deep conversation about like constipation and digestion and how that, right? If you're straining going to the bathroom all the time, that actually can lead to pelvic floor dysfunction because of all that stress on the pelvic floor, right? Another reason why, ladies, when you go pee, like relax, practice relaxing your pelvic floor when you're sitting on the toilet, whether you're going pee or you're having a bowel movement, you just need to work to relax, because we do know, like, that some women actually can tense their pelvic floor, and that can make it harder for them to empty their bladder all the way and harder for them to empty their bowels all the way. And most people don't even realize, like, they think it's all digestion. Right. They don't really realize maybe the pelvic floor plays a role. So that's one thing there, right? And those can lead to imbalances, and the Kegel's massive problem. So learning to release and relax is really a first step for everybody. And those of you listening, especially when you're active, and I don't care if you're someone who just does yoga and Pilates, which tends to be more gentle. I'm a massive Pilates person over here. And I can tell you, when I first started realizing all of this years ago, I was definitely someone who was too tight and too restricted, right? Because we kind of we tend to want to muscle through things, and we have to recognize not to do that. So one of the first places everyone needs to go is to learn to release and relax through the pelvic floor and the pelvis and the hips, because hip tightness and restriction through the hips and through the pelvis also can relate to tightness and restriction in the pelvic floor. So this is where, if we just look at the pelvic floor and we're not addressing what's going on with our positioning of our pelvis and our hip positioning and our hip mobility and the restriction or weakness or tightness or all of that that's going on, then it could just be a constant uphill battle with our pelvic floor, because we're just looking at the pelvic floor. Right. And so one of the first things I always work with everybody on is pelvic floor dysfunction or not, diastasis recti or not, is what's going on with your pelvis, right? Because in order to start to activate the deeper layers of our abdominals, we've got to be able to have a decent amount of mobility in our pelvis. And a lot of people are really locked in their pelvis and really, really tight and restricted through the glute. And here's a little trick. I'll share this with everyone listening. So if you're sitting right now, you can do this standing, but I think it's easier sitting. And if you're sitting, or you want to come back and listen to this later when you're sitting, and you just want to kind of wiggle around on your pelvis and rock from your pubic bone to your tailbone and sits bones to sits bones, right? The underneath that diamond, it's a diamond shape, as I want to give people a visual. That is your pelvic floor down there. Okay. And so we want to think about relaxing through there, right? But then if we go to try to lightly activate, and that is the key thing, most people, and this is where Kegels have taught people to grip and squeeze and squeeze and squeeze, right? We're used to the pulling the belly to spine. When we kind of do that when we do Kegel, and it's squeeze the pelvic floor and with all your might. And it's no, that actually can cause too much restriction and imbalance. So instead, what you want to start thinking of is those 4 points, lightly, very lightly, gently drawing them together, and then lifting and zipping up. And I use a zipping up. So you're lengthening from your pelvic floor through your lower abdominals, all the way through the top of your head. And that's a very quick, short summary of how we should be thinking about our pelvic floor. So it's not just our pelvic floor, it's what's going on all the way through. It's that whole fascial line. Okay. But here's the thing. Those of you that just try to activate that diamond and draw those 4 corners gently in, did you notice you squeezed your glutes? That is very common. I would say probably 90+% of women, when they come into core rehab with me after having babies, again, it can be years after. And honestly, women don't have to have babies to learn from this either, right? Yeah, totally. I just tend to work with a lot of moms because I get so passionate about it as a mom myself, right? And so that's a first step. If you're noticing you're squeezing your glutes, you are likely way too restricted in your pelvis. And we have to start to learning how to let go. And that can be a massive step towards helping you to heal your diastasis. I don't hear anyone else talking about that, at least not in my world, right? Yeah. The glutes and the pelvic positioning affect what's going on with the abdominal wall, because we are so great. Oh, I just want to heal my abs and heal my abs. Doesn't work that way, right? And then if you're really restricted through your obliques, that is also an indication you're likely too tight in your pelvis too. I just find it correlates. And I see with women I mean, again, you don't have to be like a super like doing HIIT workouts and running and really intense working out to be really restricted. A lot of us who are actually active tend to be that way unless we've really brought awareness to this. I used to be that way. I have tendencies, right? And this is what it comes down to, is learning your tendencies and figuring out like what you need to do more of. And as time goes, your body rebalances and you learn how to connect correctly through your pelvic floor, through your abdominals, through your core. And then before you know it, you're feeling your pelvic floor in a whole new way. Because what I have recognized is women don't even know how to feel their pelvic floor correctly. And that's been a personal journey of mine too. As I've gone on this journey myself, learning and evolving and teaching, I've continued to feel my pelvic floor more and more. And it is just that evolution of this journey we're all on, learning about our body. And, and with diastasis, right? Like, again, like I said, you can cause it after having babies because of that relaxin, right? But we can also do things to mitigate it and heal after as well. And that's where I see, and that's what I love teaching. It's like, okay, what can we do? Obviously we're sometimes limited during pregnancy, but I always tell my ladies that pregnancy is the best time to learn how to effectively strengthen your pelvic floor.
Totally.
So, because I get a lot of women, they're like, oh, well, I'm going to wait till after I'm done having babies to heal my body. And that is the worst thing you could do for yourself. It really is. It's honestly, and here's why, because when you're pregnant, you have a baby inside of your belly. So you have tactile feedback that you'll never, ever have any other time of your life. And your collagen synthesis is massively increased. Why would that be? Why would your collagen synthesis increase when you're pregnant? Well, you're growing a human being. And your body is mostly collagen because bones are also made of mostly a lot of collagen. We talk about calcium, and calcium is like the number one mineral. Yes, but bones are actually a lot of collagen matrix. And so we have these superpowers. I'm always teaching my moms, like, use your superpowers to your advantage, right? So when you're pregnant, you can learn so much more about your body. And this is where I see time and time again. And I work with moms that say they've had a couple babies and they've had massively severe diastasis recti. And she finally found me with a third or a fifth or sixth baby or whatever it is. And she's like, oh my gosh, I wish I had found this education earlier, right? But what is so amazing to me is when she does the techniques, and it doesn't take a lot. And that's the thing, I think so many times we think, oh gosh, we got to do this 30 or 60 minute workout every day. And it's like, no, like if that's you and you want to do that, great. But I'm really all about educating women to learn more about your body. And so it's not just about you working out. It's how are you moving during your day? How are you standing? How are you sitting? How are you carrying other children? How are you picking things up? Like there's so many things that I want to teach her, right? And the cool thing is, because of that collagen synthesis, because of that feedback of baby inside of belly, I have seen time and time again, moms who have severe diastasis, actually, by the time she's postpartum, 6 to 10 weeks, because I never will test before 6 to 10 weeks. I don't recommend it because you get a false reading and it looks bad and we don't want that. Her diastasis will be better at 6 to 10 weeks postpartum than it was when she got pregnant. And she's like, oh my gosh. And she wasn't even consciously really working to heal diastasis. We're naturally, because I'm teaching her how to train her body in a much more fascially strong way. And remember, I said we have fascial layers of fascia in our abdominal wall, right? And so it makes you so much stronger and it holds your organs in and it gives you support for growing baby and all of these changes and things that are going on. And that's the other thing, like with postpartum healing. So even if you end up with diastasis, that we have to really start to tap into, okay, we have to heal our body in a rehabilitative way. And people don't always like that word, but that's really what it is. We have to remind ourselves what our body has gone through. We think see all this stuff on social media, like get my pre-baby body back. And like, I'm like, oh, gag me. Like I will not use that in any of my marketing. I'm sure I'd have a lot more sales.
I am with you. I'm with you.
But I refuse to, because I'm like, well, one, you're in a whole different place, whether you've had one baby or 6 babies, or gosh, I think I've had a mom that had like 11 babies. Like, oh my gosh, super mom. I have 3. I'm like, that's plenty for me.
Oh my gosh.
But I love it. And here's the thing. This is why I get so passionate, because when, moms in general, whether you're, a couple weeks postpartum or whether you're like, Erica, I've got a 15-year-old kind of, right? When our body feels better and we feel stronger and we can move better, guess what? I know you do the answer to this. Our life we're happier. Everything goes a little bit easier. And that's where I get so passionate about this, because I see time and time again when moms, she can start when she's pregnant or before. I mean, again, it's never too early to start learning any of this about your body. It's also never too late either. But what I love is I love when I get to see a pregnant mom who is working on learning all of this about her body, right? And she's also learning the things that I teach about birth prep and how to prepare for the pushing stage of labor is really what I can help moms prepare for. Again, there's never a guarantee because there's always outliers, right? But we do the best we can. And we do find in general, it really helps her be better prepared to be a more efficient pusher, which means that less tearing on her pelvic floor. We even have first time moms have no tearing or like very minimal tearing. And like, I will tell you as personal experience of going from having an unnecessary episiotomy to my very last one, not tearing at all. I was like, wow, that's what it could feel like.
Yeah. Right.
And that's what I want. I want moms to be able to feel, if possible, what it feels like to birth a child and have minimal to no tearing, because it is a massive game changer in her postpartum recovery for not only her pelvic floor, but how she feels. And postpartum depression is a major problem. We don't talk enough about it because it looks so different for so many people. And if you can work on this part of your life, and it's like you have control over some of these things. You don't have control over everything, right? We definitely don't have control over how birth goes. But I always tell my moms, like, you're going to be better prepared for whatever it is that happens. Right. Even if you have a cesarean, planned or unplanned, your body's going to heal better. And we also see that with cesareans, which makes me so excited because like we have the diastasis conversation, it's the same with diastasis recti, right? Because she's learning how to be more fascially strong, we hear back from these moms that they're like, my doctor was like, what did you do when you're pregnant? Because they noticed like when they made that incision, that the tissue felt different. Like it was just so much nicer. And then guess what? She heals faster. It's a similar conversation. And I feel like societally, we separate all this. Like women think she gets a diagnosis of diastasis recti. She gets a diagnosis of I've had a C-section, or I have pelvic floor dysfunction, or I have back pain. We separate them all out. And to me, it's all one. It doesn't matter. I start my ladies at the same place regardless. And yes, if I've got a new mom who has a C-section, she may just start a week or two after a mom with a vaginal birth. She may move a little bit slower, but that's the biggest difference. And again, we have us so separated of like, you have diastasis, you do this, you have pelvic floor, you do. I'm like, no, you do the similar techniques and you may gravitate towards, maybe some certain exercises a little bit more that really resonate for your body, but that's independent of you, not necessarily what's going on with your body. Right. And it just like drives me nuts. The whole separation of all the things and the diagnosis is out there. I'm like, no, like it's just telling you what's going on with your body. And we just got to hack your body and what it needs to be taught. So you can feel so much better.
Yeah. Well, and at the same time, because I like how you said, like, it doesn't matter how long it's been. Like you have, ladies who have 15-year-old kids, like you can still learn, like you're talking about, the awareness piece is huge, and you can still train your body and you can still heal it, even if you don't have babies anymore. Like your babies aren't babies anymore.
Yeah, exactly. It never is too late. I love it. Cause I'll have, women in there. A lot of my ladies are their 30s and 40s. And it's so funny the amount of times that they're like, I think my mom needs this. And they will get their mom in and learning too. And I love it because it really is never too late. And it's really comes down to, we don't know what we don't know.
Right.
And so a lot of times when ladies come into my world, I have to tell them like, look, you have to don't fight what you're learning from me. You have to come in and recognize you're going to be learning a lot of new things about your body, new ways of breathing, new ways of moving. And because I teach like basically a 180 of a lot of what's taught in fitness.
Right.
And I say that because I am also a certified personal trainer. I started in exercise science. I taught some of those cues that I now say not to in my very early days. I quickly realized like, this is not what I want to be doing and working. But yeah, it's amazing that, what is actually causing some of the dysfunction is actually what's being taught in the fitness world. And, it needs to change. And that's why I love these conversations, because we don't know what we don't know. And so until someone brings awareness to us that like, oh gosh, the tucking the pelvis all the time, the drawing the belly to spine, like some of these techniques, the rolling the shoulders, all these things that can actually be causing some of the dysfunction.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I agree 100%. And I'm the same. I started out in Pilates, but then I also did group fitness and I taught all the things. And it was soon after, like you said, it was probably soon after I started teaching group fitness where I'm like, and I'd already done my, Pilates training. And I'm like, like this doesn't, I don't know about this, like this cue, this, yeah, but I agree. And I had that conversation with, some of my ladies at my studio, because all of our classes are based on Pilates principles, and we teach contemporary Pilates, which is a little bit different than classical Pilates in terms of pelvic placement, which I think is a lot more conducive to functional movement and stuff. And so we have to have those conversations, about tucking the pelvis, and it just doesn't, it's not.
So the whole pelvis tucking thing, right? I think, because it comes out, and you look at traditional Pilates, it's more connected with like the dance world. And again, there's a time and a place to tuck the pelvis. And there are movements I will take clients through, as you do as well, where you're rolling through. But what it comes down to, just for everyone listening to clarify, it's about not walking around all day and not doing all your exercises with the tucked pelvis, because it puts so much pressure on your pelvic floor and you're not optimally engaging your core. So if you want to heal that diastasis, it's not going to work that well, likely for you. And I find women need to have most women need to have a little bit more of an anterior tilt, which we generally have anyway. But again, if you've got a really tight pelvis and you're trying to get an anterior tilt, you're just going to hurt your back until you start to realize how to open up through your pelvic floor and your hips and things like that. So it's like, we don't also want to make and do like 180s with like, oh, we're going to tuck pelvis. Because obviously I have to remind them, I'm like, the first step is to just start to let go of those glutes more often and not be gripping. Much.
Well, and that's the problem I've had. And this isn't to bash like any specific, type of movement, but I also know we teach bar as well. We teach a more contemporary type of bar, and the very classical bar training. You're in a tucked pelvis like the whole time. And I have to explain that when we're doing our teacher training at the studio, like why this is not safe or helpful. And you're just clenching your glutes the whole time. And it's just, there's a lot of that. I just, and again, like you said, there's a time and place. And I, my background is dance. I danced for 20, however many years, but it's, seeing like exactly what functional movement looks like and like how the body moves more efficiently from certain positions with the pelvis in the right place. Like it just makes sense that a lot of these classical ways of teaching things like bar and Pilates just they're not functional. They're not exactly safe for, functional movement. So yeah. And I think it's unfortunate that, and again, this isn't bashing other types of movement, but I just think it's unfortunate that, because I don't know about you, I know I've had ladies come into my studio and they've had their knees are bothering them, their hips are bothering them, their core is bothering them, all because they've been at this other classical bar place and they've been doing things. And I'm like, and then you have to undo all of that. Like you have to train them to undo all of that. It's
I always joke. I'm like, I am like untucking pelvises every day.
I believe it. I believe you are. Oh my gosh.
And it makes a difference because when women actually start to do that and they start to not be so grippy in their muscles, oh my gosh, it's like a whole new world opens up for them of mobility. And, I feel like sometimes too, like, I sometimes with the word mobility, I say that, and I think people think it's like, oh, older people and mobility, but like, it's not. And I know you see it, and I definitely, I see it too. It's like dysfunction starts so young. Like I've seen moms in their mid to late 20s with mobility issues, pelvic floor issues, the diastasis, the back pain, the whole thing. And they've literally gone to their doctor and they're like, oh, well, you can either have surgery or you have to suffer with this for the rest of your life. And I'm like, that's BS. And that's actually, those conversations is what really motivated me to create my Core Rehab Program, because I was like, what? That's BS. No, I can help you, And I started getting a room and she's like, oh my gosh, like literally tears of joy at the end of a session. She's like, oh, this is the most relief I have felt since before having kids, And I'm like, that is way too young, right? So many women are having dysfunction, movement dysfunction, pelvic floor dysfunction at such a young age, mid 20s, 30s, 40s. And I'm like, okay, if this is already happening, it's really like you need to wake up. And I say this with love and kindness because it's only going to get worse. Because I hope you know as well, because you see it, right? I work with older clients as well, and I love it. But I'm like, oh my gosh, if we can start this younger and women understand how to move better and breathe better and all these things, we can prevent so much. And that's why just having these conversations and sharing these conversations with all your girlfriends. And just, even if all of it sounds like too much, you just pick what you can, right? And start working on it because, if we don't do anything about it and we just keep shoving our symptoms under the rug or just saying like, oh, well, this is, I just have to suffer from this because the doctor told me so, or I have to have surgery. And like, we get a lot of women that join in Core Rehab because she's like, I don't want to have surgery. And that's what she's been told. And like, it's people with back pain. I've never had anyone come through Core Rehab that's had to have surgery after doing it. Like, they're like, you prevented me from having surgery, back surgery. Like, that's a massive surgery.
Heck yeah.
And the only ones we've ever had is hernias, right? And most women, vast majority of women that come in my world have hernias. And hernias, we should talk just a little bit with diastasis, but because with diastasis recti, right, you get that separation, and sometimes women can get misdiagnosed with like thinking they have a really big umbilical hernia, right? Because they have, there's like nothing there. It's like super weak.
Right.
So I always tell my ladies that have been diagnosed with a hernia, if you think you have an umbilical hernia, is you need to work to heal your abdominals, deep core, pelvic floor. You got to do all of that, because most of the time I see that it's just because that tissue, that fascia of the abdominal wall is so weak and so lax that there's no connection. So it appears as though you have a bigger hernia than you really have. And when we start to connect and re-strengthen that fascia, either your hernia appears then to be much smaller because we've actually tightened up that fascia, and we can actually create more fascia too, and stronger and all of that, then that is no longer a problem. And you're like, well, now I don't feel the need to have surgery because it doesn't impede, like my life is great. I don't have any pain and I can move just fine and do all these things. Right. So the only time that I ever encourage, or will definitely say like support and say, okay, yeah, you probably do need surgery, is if there is pain with an umbilical hernia, because then that can mean your intestines are getting kind of strangled with the fascia. They maybe poke through, and that's really rare. Really, really rare. Honestly, most women don't have pain with it. And once you start to heal and you have more support of your organs and you get your digestion and stuff moving better, I teach a stomach massage. It's so powerful. And, usually if there was even a little discomfort, that goes away. But that's really the only time. But it's amazing the amount of ladies who they're like, I don't want to have surgery. So I want to do what I can. And it's just amazing how the body can heal itself when we give it the right tools and techniques, and we treat our body with love and kindness. And we're really, really open to discovering who we are. You know what I mean? Because I think we grow up, especially those that are really active and want to be really strong. And maybe life has happened to where you're like, I used to be this athlete when I was younger, and now I can't because maybe back pain. I mean, back pain really is something that also that like stops a lot of young moms from doing things, or it kind of is that piece in her life that pulls her out of her activity level. Right. And when we can work to get rid of that, like, it's amazing how it just transforms her life and her family and everything. And that's where I try to connect the dots for my ladies. Because sometimes they get fixated on like, well, this is how I've been doing it. And And I'm like, yeah, but if you keep doing things the way you've been doing them and you've got pain, you've got dysfunction, you've got whatever's going on, like, it's not going to get better. So we have to be open to learning new things. And when you are, it's so amazing. It lights me up and I love it. It's exciting.
Yeah, I love it. And I love the passion for it. It shows and how many lives you're changing. So I like to give people, kind of leave them with some like tangible things that they can start doing to, with whatever we're talking about. So are there like 2 or 3 things that ladies can start doing now to just, basically we've been talking about either if it's like a reconnection with themselves, if it's something that can help to like tune into their pelvic floor, deep ab muscles, like 2 or 3 things that you think would be like the most powerful things to start with.
So I think one of them is learning how to release and relax through your pelvis and pelvic floor, and just practicing that. That's huge. So whether that's when you're going to the bathroom or just like you're sitting and you're like, let me just pay attention, or maybe you're sitting in the kitchen, right? And all of a sudden you notice yourself like clenching your glutes, like just starting to like let go, be like, oh gosh, I'm clenching my glutes. Let me just let go of them and see what can start to happen, because that can start to untuck your pelvis a little bit. Another one is posture, just because we just have to pay attention to your posture. We're on our phones and our computers too much. And those of you that have kids, especially school age, and they're on the computers way too young, like, you got to remind them too. So posture is one. And one thing I will say with posture is, and I kind of said this earlier when I was giving that little cue walkthrough of how to lightly activate your pelvic floor. And that's like drawing those 4 points slightly together, that like zipping up and lengthening tall all the way through the top of your head. So many times with posture, we're taught just draw the shoulders back. I actually don't like that. It tightens the neck too much. So I actually tell everyone, like, relax your shoulders and instead think of from the pelvic floor, just zipping up, lengthening through the top of your head. The lengthening cue is huge. I always get good feedback. They're like, Erica, I love the lengthening. If you just did that, that could really, really start to just help move things in the right direction.
Definitely.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
And then I would say the other one, there's so many, I would say is breath, just because we tend to be, with stress and everything in our go lives, we tend to breathe so shallow. And again, to work on finding optimal core function and all of that, we really have to use our breath. And we don't want to be forceful with our breath. We want to be gentle with our breath, right? So just thinking about visualizing your breath going deeper down into your body, breathing out into your rib cage, breathing out into your back. And I know a lot of you listening are like, I have no idea how to do that. That's okay. You just have to start and you have to just visualize. I'm a huge fan of visualizing what you want. And so in our body, we actually know through research that we can start to, say, for example, start to breathe better by just visualizing ourselves breathing better. So even if you breathe and your shoulders rise to your ears, you can still visualize your breath going deeper into your body. And so by us starting to open up our breath and open up our ribs and our low back and breathing deeper into the pelvis, we can just really start to, improve our core function as well. So there's so much we can only do with breath. And I know people will say, but Erica, we don't actually breathe into our pelvis. I know, but we have a relaxation response that happens all the way down into the pelvis, right? When we can send our breath deeper. And it's not just belly breathing. Belly breathing's fine. I don't have anything against it, but I don't teach a lot of belly breathing. I teach more breathing into the back, out into the ribs kind of thing, as you know, because it opens up a whole new world.
It does. Yep. Proper breathing we have a whole conversation just on that. So that's, I love it. Yeah. Those are perfect. Thank you. Those are super helpful. So y'all go back and take notes on that because she just gave you some jewels right there. So you can go start connecting with yourself a little better. So I do have one more question. I want to ask you a question that I always like to end with. But before I ask, can you let everybody know where to find more about you and all of this coaching that you're doing for ladies of any age who want to rehab their core and all of that?
Okay. Thank you so much, Hope. This has been awesome. So ladies, you can find everything that I do on my website. It's ericaziel.com. My last name is spelled Ziel. I'm also on Instagram at Erica Ziel. And Core Rehab really is my signature program. And if you're pregnant, it's my Knocked Up Fitness program. So it's easy to remember. And then I have my Core Connections podcast as well.
Perfect. Of course, I have all of those links in the show notes for y'all. I highly recommend. I know I have a few friends who did the Knocked Up Fitness program. So I know that's great because they gave rave reviews. So the last question I want to ask you is, what do you think is the most important thing you can do to live with purpose?
I think it really comes down to living your life in alignment to what's important to you, right? Not living up to anyone else's standards. I think we can get stuck in that sometimes, especially when we're a mom, we have kids, we've got a spouse, we've got work, like all these things going. I think we really need to spend more time reflecting on what we really want. And when you're reflecting on what's really important to you and are you living in alignment, you can start to ask questions of, should I say no to some of these things that are keeping me in a stress state and busy work? And is there other things I need to be putting my attention on? Or maybe you're on the right track right now. And that's just as important to reflect from time to time, to recognize no, I am living my purpose and I am doing exactly what I am, I've set out to do. So I think just spending some time in reflection and living in alignment with what's important to you.
I love that. That's perfect. Beautiful answer. Thank you so much, Erica. This was awesome. I love this conversation and we could go another 2 hours going in so many directions with this. So thank you for giving us all the most important pieces. Thank you for sharing all of your insight and everybody's going to go check you out. So thanks so much for joining.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Hope.
Thanks for listening to Hopeful and Wholesome, y'all. If you found value in this week's episode, please subscribe on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts and leave a review to let me know what you thought. I love to know what you find useful in these episodes so I know how I can provide the most value I can to my listeners. And if you have topics that you want to know more about, I'd love to hear those as well. So shoot me a message on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. It's @TheHopePedraza or visit my website, hopefulandwholesome.com. Thanks, y'all.